It's time now for 3 to Watch. Stories we're tracking that this week have people talking.
If there's even one life that can be saved, we've got an obligation to try.
Are the president's kids more important than yours?
We are responding to a request from our French friends for logistical assistance in the form of heavy lift.
You believed, and I lied to you. And I'm sorry.
So, 3 big stories, and to talk about them, I'm joined by 3 news junkies. Marni Soupcoff is the blog's editor at Huffington Post Canada. Stephen Marche is an author and Esquire columnist. And Adam Goldenberg is a policy wonk. He's also a former Liberal speechwriter. So, let's get started with the first big story we'll be watching.
And we're going to have to come together and take meaningful action to prevent more tragedies like this.
That was Obama's vow after the mass shooting at Newtown. Now he's pushing Congress on gun control, and the NRA has taken aim.
He's just another elitist hypocrite.
The U.S. gun lobby is locked and loaded. So can Obama really take them on and win? What do you think, Adam?
Well, it looks like the answer is yes, because most Americans, it appears, support his proposal to ban assault weapons, and that's good news. But if you look at different polling, you see that most Americans also support the NRA's proposal, which is to arm guards in schools and to protect children that way. But the real issue here is who can frame the debate, and the person who will win is the party on either side that can get people talking about the issues that they want people to talk about. If we're talking about the president's kids, if we're talking about armed guards in schools, we're not talking about the 300 million guns that are in the hands of Americans, and that's what the NRA wants us not to talk about. So far, I'd say it's an even draw. The final point, the NRA's been fighting this campaign, this spin war, for decades now, and it's a new game for the Obama administration. So it's time will tell to see if they can keep track and keep up to speed.
So, Stephen, he's taking on the NRA. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the NRA has been very incompetent during this whole business, but I think you have to understand that there's just this mass of Americans who have guns and who believe in the Second Amendment, which the courts have supported. The culture of guns in America is so entrenched and so large that I think, you can turn the NRA into a boogeyman, but the truth is that what their success is in pointing out what politicians believe. They're not some nefarious lobbying group that really, they are responding to an interest in the community itself. So I think that battle, which is a cultural battle, is deep and long, and it is very hard to win.
310 million guns, as many guns as Americans. Marni, I mean, has the NRA already won?
Well, I don't know if it's the NRA who has won, but I think the NRA has won part of the argument, which is that the sort of changes that Obama is presenting are, I think most people believe that although they sound good and will make people feel a little bit better, the idea that they will actually have any practical effect is very hard to fathom.
Well, and this whole idea, Adam, of controlling guns. In Australia, they basically just prohibited them. They took them away. Is the battle already over?
Well, I mean, if you ban assault weapons, the evidence suggests that you can dry up the supply and eventually reduce the numbers that are in people's hands, and that would be a good move. But I'm with Stephen on this.
But they last forever, right?
The majority of gun crime in the U.S. is handguns. I mean, we like to talk about assault weapons because it sounds incredibly scary, and they are incredibly scary. But the bottom line is most of the violence is happening with just plain old handguns.
The scariest stat I've read so far about guns in America is that the number of households with a gun is between 33 and 42%. That's how little they know about who has guns. The spectrum of that, like 9%, give or take. They have no idea what is out there. It's 1.5 million AR-15s were produced in the last 5 years. There's a huge number of these weapons out there. I think mere laws aren't really going to change the situation enough here. There needs to be a cultural change about the relationship to gun ownership in America if there's actually going to be any real change.
Well, we'll see step 1 if it actually gets through Congress or not.
Right.
Time for story number 2.
More teeth and less tail.
That was the Prime Minister's plan for the armed forces in an era of budget cuts. But half of Mali is now a playground for al-Qaeda. France sent 2,000 troops. Canada 1 transport plane for 1 week. So should we be showing more teeth in Mali? So, Stephen, I'll start with you. I mean, the door isn't closed. It's there for a week. That's about to run out. Maybe there'll be more announced this week. But what do you think?
I just wish we were sending Canadian forces out with something more than just reactive policies to what other people are wanting. I mean, with some actual kind of plan of what we want to communicate and do in the world. I mean, you know, Mali is always obviously this awful situation. Should we be sending our children into this quagmire? I think it's very hard to give an answer either way. I mean, I think we can say pretty certainly that we actually have a relationship to Haiti, that we can be positive there, and that maybe we should concentrate our foreign policy on the good that we can do, rather than some vague question that involves European powers in which we're always going to be a small part. I mean, that's a great non-answer, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, I don't know what the right thing to do is here, but I do know that I think going into these quagmires with Canadian lives on the line is not something we want to do anymore.
Adam?
Well, it's not a quagmire yet. I mean, this is the early days of an intervention.
Brewing.
We don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what we can't do. We can't show teeth and then turn tail if we're going to take the Prime Minister at his word. And Canada is there now. We have a plane that's in the air over Mali. There are people who are supporting that plane, Canadian Forces personnel. I'd be stunned if we didn't have some sort of intelligence cooperation or logistics cooperation with the French and the other powers that are intervening there. And we're in support of an African-led mission to prevent al-Qaeda, Islamist militants, from taking over a West African country. There are clear strategic interests here. Our problem is that if you talk to Canadians, 3 times this week I've had conversations with friends, and I've said, well, what about Mali? And they say, who's Mali? And if that's
Mali?
Yes, and if the case isn't being made to the Canadian people that this is an intervention worth taking, that's when we have a problem on the political side. So that has to change.
Marni, what do you think? And I'm back to this idea of you know, the Prime Minister has talked tough on cracking down on terrorism. There is terrorism, we believe, here. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think that if the Prime Minister is going to talk that way, then he's got to follow up with more than one plane. I mean, I understand that there are a lot of reasons to want this to be an African-led mission, but that doesn't mean the African Union soldiers, they don't have spy planes, they don't have drones, they don't have the capabilities to do this on their own. There are ways that we can help, even if we're not talking about actual combat. There are ways that we can actually just provide support. And if you're going to, unless Harper is going to change his line, then I think he's got to put more on the table than he is.
We'll see what happens this week. Story number 3.
I'm a flawed character.
So Lance Armstrong is a liar and a cheat, and he's letting everyone know it. But what's he really up to? So, Marni, I'll let you start on this one. Everyone was sort of laughing, hearing him say, oh, there he goes. Has he success? We don't need to talk about whether he's an honest man or a good man or how he handled Oprah or any of that. But what do you think? Has he successfully rebranded himself?
No, not yet. I mean, I think it's the kind of thing that will take time, and I think this is going to be an ongoing project. But I think that he probably did the smartest thing he could do, given where he is now. It would have been smarter to do it a long time ago. But to actually be the one, rather than to end up caught having to say this in a deposition or having this to come out in court, he at least got to be the one who sat there and said it to Oprah. He kind of got out in front of it as much as he could at this point. I think he was boxed into a corner. So, you know, from a PR point of view, I think he did okay, and people are very forgiving. It's sort of baffling, and it's baffling in a way. Yeah, I do.
You think? Wow.
I do, and I think that he could also have a whole second wind with this, a whole sort of new, you know, I've reformed, and this is the, you know, I'm on to my new, this is a new me, and this is what I've learned from this journey, and
he can't win, though, anymore, right? Like, he's not going to be in any sports events that he can win, so why would we care about the next phase of his life?
But I mean, I think he hopes, I think that's also partly
the Iron Man stuff. There's all kinds of things which could lead to sponsorships.
But I think he hopes this admission might actually get him back in.
I mean, look,
whichever one falls.
I mean, Marni, I think Marni is right. I mean, he has rebranded himself. And the way he's rebranded himself is he's gone from being a suspected loser to a confirmed loser. Someone told Lance Armstrong that the best way to fight fire is with fire, but then he lit himself on fire, and that doesn't help anybody. When he said he looked up the word cheat in the dictionary, he should have looked up the word apologize instead, because until you show some contrition, it doesn't matter how forgiving people are, they're not willing to give you a second shot until they see that basic human impulse to make amends. And I don't think he got there.
I hope you're right. I'm not sure it's true, but I hope so.
I think the other thing is, what the story really revealed is that he's a bully. And I think he's a really profound bully. And I think people really hate that now.
He was
in a
completely
way
in
that,
control of that interview, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so scripted in many
He
ways.
didn't have to give any of it up. That's what got me. Is he didn't have to admit as much as he did.
Yeah.
If the rebranding works, so that could lead to competing again. It could lead to sponsorships if he's at all successful or anyone cares. It could lead to a book. And then there's a speech circuit. So I'm just wondering, the whole motivation, that whole thing, bare your soul is big on this. Could this work? I mean, would people pay big money? I'm told that in the past, for Canadian charities, his fee to him, not to the charity, was $300,000. So that's, you know, I'm sure that's a consideration here. Do you see him, Adam, do you see him back on the speech circuit as the flawed man?
Not anytime soon. I mean, it's possible that he could make a comeback and start making money on the speaking circuit again, but he's got to do something more than that interview before people are willing to forgive him to that extent.
Well, I think maybe if he had a dunk tank where you could throw things at him and then he fell into water, he could probably charge money for that. But I mean, what optimistic message is he going to give to your corporation at the after-dinner speech? Be a weasel until you get caught, and then try and rebrand yourself at the end? I mean, this is not...
Honesty, not always the best policy.
Yeah, honesty. The best policy in the last possible avenue.
Do you have a title for his new keynote speech there, Marni?
Yeah, I was thinking of, yes, I think, because he had, you know, his book was It's Not About the Bike, My Path Back to Life, I believe. So I was thinking, it's not about the truth, my path back to public favor. Because I am far more cynical than you guys. I think that people are going to eat this up.
Yeah,
you know,
the book for sure, right?
The book and the speaking engagements. I think the reason he was pulling in $300,000 is not just because people thought he was a great guy. It's because he was a famous guy and people were just intrigued. And I think people are even more intrigued. They might be disgusted, but that's...
Oh, there's always so much more to talk about with Lance Armstrong, but we're out of time.
He can call the book anything he wants, but he can give it whatever title he wants. The Tour de France will just take the title away from him, right?
Nice line to Adam. Thank you very much. That was fun.
Thank you.